Sold-out concert venue buzzed with energy, alive with excitement like a living organism. George Strait stepped onto the stage, his cowboy hat slightly tilted, casting a shadow over his eyes. The bright lights illuminated the expectant faces of thousands, a sea ready to be swept away by his music. As he stood before them, a familiar thrill ignited within him, pulling him into the heartbeat of a crowd that adored him. Taking a deep breath, George's fingers brushed against the strings of his beloved guitar. With the first strum, bright and melodic, a wave of applause surged through the air. The music wrapped around him, transporting him back to moments shared with family, long-lost friends, and every heart that had connected with his songs. This was a space of belonging, where he could temporarily escape the weight of his loneliness. But as the familiar melody unfolded, an unexpected interruption caused the music to falter. A scruffy stray dog, wild-eyed and hesitant, wandered onto the stage. Laughter rippled through the audience, surprise mixing with delight as the little creature froze in the spotlight, unsure of its surroundings. The bright lights, the sound of George's guitar, and the warmth of the crowd created a strange atmosphere, a moment suspended in time. "What do we have here?" George's voice broke through the laughter, a mixture of amusement and concern. The dog's soulful eyes met his, revealing an aching longing and a sense of abandonment. Confusion washed over him as he saw a reflection of his own struggles with loneliness mirrored back at him. The audience leaned forward, breaths held in anticipation, feeling the connection in the air. Instead of ushering the dog away, George knelt down slowly, opening his hand in a gesture of welcome. The stray hesitated, eyes flickering with uncertainty. It felt as if they were sharing a silent understanding, a moment of unspoken acknowledgement of each other's battles. For George, it turned the night into something extraordinary. He felt a shift within. Rising to his feet, he found a surprising warmth blooming in his chest as the stray stepped closer, tail wagging slightly. They were both lost souls, searching for connection amidst the chaos of fame and life's uncertainties. As George stood before the audience once again, he realized this event had transformed into something deeper than mere entertainment. The laughter faded, replaced by a silence thick with anticipation. George Strait faced the crowd, recognizing a shared vulnerability in the room. That night was no longer just about the performance. It was a chance to explore human connection, to embrace the feelings of isolation and understanding that lingered in all their hearts. With the stray dog at his feet, George took a breath and prepared to dive into the unknown. The night's trajectory had shifted, revealing a powerful calling, a melody that sought to unite lost souls seeking warmth and belonging. As he glanced at the audience, a sense of purpose rooted deep within him. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready to explore it together, one heartfelt note at a time. As the audience remained enraptured by the unexpected encounter, George's mind drifted back through the years, to the dusty roads of Texas where it all began. Flashbacks danced in vibrant colors before him, the echoes of laughter and music intertwining with the bittersweet memories of simpler times. He saw himself, a young man playing in local bars, gathering with friends and family, their voices mingling like a warm embrace. The sound of clinking glasses accompanied the twang of an old guitar, where country music flowed as easily as the sweet tea that filled their cups. Infused with heart and soul, the songs told tales of love, loss, and the enduring strength of connections rooted in shared experiences. In one flashback, he remembered standing by his father, a rugged man with deep-set eyes filled with warmth. The man had shaped George's understanding of compassion, teaching him the importance of kindness and community. "Son," he would say, leaning close, "music is a gift you share. It connects us all." The memories came rushing back, the two of them singing harmonies in the kitchen, the scent of cornbread baking in the oven. Those moments became George's foundation, building blocks of the man he had become. But here, in the present, those memories felt distant and haunting. The spotlight cast long shadows, and fame had placed a barrier between him and his roots. As he continued to play, George felt the weight of loneliness settle upon him, each note carrying the burden of isolation, even amid adoration. He wondered if, along the way, he had lost sight of what truly mattered, the connections that once fueled his passion for music. With the dog still resting at his feet, George sought comfort in the present moment, recognizing something familiar in its gaze. The stray dog, with its longing eyes, echoed the sense of loss he felt inside. Just as he had spent years searching for belonging through his music, here was another soul yearning for connection. He felt a kinship, a shared struggle that pulled at his heartstrings. Returning his thoughts to the crowd, George glanced over the sea of faces. He sensed that each person there held their own stories, the invisible threads weaving a tapestry of shared experiences. He could almost hear the whispers of their hopes and dreams mingling with the notes of his songs. His reflection sharpened. The audience, just like him, craved connection and understanding. Among them, George spotted a familiar face, Annie, a passionate animal rights activist he had met years ago. She stood with fire in her eyes, a beacon of compassion and care, forever advocating for the stray animals who had captured her heart. Her unwavering spirit reminded him of the importance of community and togetherness. When their paths had crossed before, she had opened his eyes to the need for connection beyond the fame, the call to help those who felt overlooked. He could see the tears glistening in her eyes, a reflection of the joy that accompanied shared purpose. As he played, he took a moment to acknowledge her with a nod, reminding himself of the values they both upheld. Annie had once told him, "It's not just about saving lives, George, it's about creating a family where every soul belongs." Her words resonated in his mind and heart. The sound of music enveloped them, but George could sense the turning tide outside the notes. His thoughts meandered to Tommy, the middle-aged truck driver from the back of the room. He had approached George at the beginning of the show, feeling skeptical of celebrity culture. But during moments shared in silence, shaking their heads and exchanging smiles, George sensed an unlikely friendship growing. Tommy represented a bridge, a connection forged through shared vulnerability. As George played on, memories of the countless fans he'd met over the years flashed back, people who had poured their hearts out to him, telling stories of love inspired by his songs. It was the very essence of his music, crafted from the raw, unguarded moments of life. Making a living, he thought, yet desperately craving the closeness that flowed so freely from those past days. Sweeping across the stage, George allowed the music to guide him deeper into reflection. Each note was imbued with the longing to reconnect, both with the audience and himself. He began to realize that perhaps this dog's arrival was no accident, but a sign, a reminder that the bonds of love and community were still alive, waiting to be reignited. Just as he finished a nostalgic song, the stray dog shifted slightly, bringing George back to the present. With a renewed sense of purpose, he caught the gaze of Annie, who nodded encouragingly, a silent promise that they would find their way to each other. The resolve settled in his heart. That night would be different, a turning point, a chance to rediscover the melody of connection he longed for. The applause from the crowd roared through the air, encouraging him to step forward. He learned then that it was not too late to reach back to his roots and embrace the connections waiting to be uncovered. With newfound determination, he would strive to connect hearts through every note and lyric sung, every glance shared. In that moment, George recognized that he was not just a performer, he was a part of a community eager to embrace each other and find their harmony once more. As George basked in the applause, he felt the heady energy of the crowd swell around him. The stray dog sat at his feet, reminding him of something deeper within. He took a breath, shifted his weight, and prepared to dive into the music, letting it flow through him like a river of connection. He began with a well-known ballad, one that spoke of yearning and hope, woven from the fabric of life. The gentle strumming of his guitar resonated in the hearts of everyone present, creating a shared tapestry of loss and love. As he sang, the familiar pang of loneliness gripped him, a haunting reminder of isolation even amid adoration. The music that once brought him joy now echoed his discontent. In the midst of cheers, he felt like an imposter, a solitary star in a sea of lights, shining brightly yet profoundly alone. Between songs, the faces of those who had touched his life floated through his mind. His late wife, Norma, laughing heartily during their home jam sessions, her encouragement forever etched in his heart. "George, remember that music is about connection," she would say, her eyes shimmering with warmth. He longed for that sense of belonging, the closeness that made every note worthwhile. As he sang the final part of the ballad, George could see Tommy, the middle-aged truck driver, nodding along. Tommy's gaze held a mixture of admiration and understanding. George recognized that Tommy, like many others around him, was also grappling with loneliness. These shared glances began a silent dialogue between them, binding their struggles together. The emotions swirling inside him urged George to speak. "Thank you all for being here," he started, his voice wavering slightly but growing stronger. "I know we come together to celebrate, but I have to be honest. There are times when even the brightest lights feel lonely." The audience fell quiet, their rapt attention hanging in the air. He shared the truth of his isolation, finding strength in vulnerability. It's easy to lose sight of connection while being wrapped up in success. We forget how important it is to reach out to one another. His admission resonated deeply, unraveling the barriers between him and his audience. The stray dog seemed to sense the moment, raising its head, eyes shining with understanding. "This little guy reminds us that connection matters," George said, gesturing toward the creature, igniting nods of recognition from the crowd. A sense of solidarity enveloped the venue. Everyone held stories of hardship and longing, tales ready to be shared. With a look of encouragement, Annie stood in the audience, her eyes urging him on. George embraced his honesty as he recounted how music had helped him navigate his darkest days. "We need each other," he declared. "There's beauty in reaching out, in sharing our lives." He caught Tommy's gaze, seeing appreciation and empathy reflected back, the depths of their newfound friendship radiating in the air. Each note he played became an anchor, a call to unity that transcended individual experiences. George's heart warmed as applause erupted, but this time it was not merely for his performance. It was for the kinship he had given voice to. Reinvigorated, he returned to his guitar, pouring his energy into the music. The feelings of isolation dissipated, replaced by the realization that they were all woven together. His audience, his past, the stray dog, and the memories entwined in melodies. They were a community standing together, hearts open and ready to embrace. As the night continued, George found strength in the connections formed. Through shared stories and laughter, they flatly extinguished feelings of loneliness. In that moment, he knew he was part of something greater, a gathering of souls healing together, reaffirming that hope could bloom even in the most solitary of hearts. As the last notes of the final song drifted into silence, the room pulsed with an electric afterglow. George lowered his guitar, heart racing with a newfound energy that coursed through him like a fresh breeze on a summer's day. The audience remained tumultuous, caught in the moment, and he caught sight of the stray dog nestled comfortably against his leg, offering an inexplicable sense of camaraderie. He took a step forward into the spotlight, as if crossing a threshold from shadow to light. The applause resonated with more than appreciation. It felt like a collective exhale, a release of unspoken burdens among all who had gathered. George was no longer just up there to entertain, he was healing alongside them. Pulling himself together, he spotted Annie, her smile brightening in the dim light. She beckoned and he could see the warmth in her eyes, a promise of renewal. "Let's go backstage," she mouthed, and he nodded, feeling eager to continue their conversation away from the eyes of the crowd. Once backstage, the pulsating energy from the stage faded, replaced by a comforting quiet. The chatter of roadies and the rustle of equipment filled the air, but George's mind was a whirl of reflections. As he set down his guitar, the weight that had felt heavy for so long began to lift. For the first time in a long while, he felt free, not from obligation or expectation, but from the shackles of his own loneliness. "George," Annie began, her voice soft yet firm, breaking into his thoughts as she stepped closer. "You were incredible tonight. You really reached people." "I hope so," he replied, still in a daze from the waves of connection he had experienced. "I just spoke the truth as it came to me. I didn't plan on doing that." "It doesn't matter if it was planned or not," she said, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. "What matters is that you let down your guard. That was real. That was you." "What's surprising," he admitted, "is how liberating it felt. Sharing that vulnerability let the music flow in ways I hadn't experienced in years. I've been holding so much in, trying to keep it together on and off that stage." Annie stepped closer, her presence grounding him in the moment. "You know, everyone experiences those shadows, George. It takes courage to confront them. You've shown that it's okay not to be okay. That's why people relate to you. They see themselves in your struggles. You've always had that gift." He looked down, considering her words. Those shadows swirled in his mind. His late wife's absence, the crippling loneliness during long tours, the days when music felt like just a job rather than an expression of life. But as he locked eyes with her, he felt the gilded cracks in his heart start to mend. "Maybe it's time for a change," he posited, excitement wrapping around the words. A new approach, not just in my music, but in my life. Absolutely, she encouraged. Let the music help you heal. Let it guide what comes next. You don't have to carry the past alone anymore. The thought ignited something fierce within him. By allowing himself to be vulnerable and genuine, he had forged new connections, not only with the audience but with himself. It was a rebirth, a return to what really mattered: authenticity. Deciding to seize the moment, he pulled out a notepad filled with scribbled lyrics that had long been hidden away. Flipping through the pages, he felt the stirrings of inspiration igniting again. What if I wrote a song about this very journey? He mused. A song celebrating not just the highs of success, but the lows that made him whole. As he browsed through the notes, he found a couple of half-finished verses about healing, love, and loss, and suddenly they felt right. They fit perfectly with the moment he had just shared. The words poured forth like a river breaking free from winter's ice. "Annie, what do you think about this?" he said, a newfound fervor in his tone. "Let's create something new together." She read the words, a blush warming her cheeks. "Wow, George, this is beautiful. You're capturing the essence of what we all experienced tonight. This could be cathartic for you, and for everyone who hears it." With excitement bubbling over, they dove into the melodies and harmonies that could wrap these lyrics in a soothing embrace. It was remarkable how the shifts in his heart morphed into notes that flowed effortlessly, everything they created mirroring the connection he felt with the audience. Hours slipped away as they worked through the music. The sterile backstage faded, replaced by a vibrant landscape where dreams and emotions mingled freely. Each chord struck echoed the renewed hope in George's heart. "Wow, I think we've got something special here," he remarked breathlessly as they ran through the final lines. Annie clapped her hands together, her energy infectious. "This song needs to be shared. The world needs to hear it. You're ready to take that leap of faith." Feeling invigorated, George made eye contact with her, and in that moment, a silent promise passed between them. She believed in him, and for the first time he believed in himself again. As the early morning light began to seep through the cracks of the old venue, George held the finished lyrics in his palm and thought of the journey ahead. The shy, self-doubting man he had been was starting to fade, replaced by one who was aware of his own power, willing to embrace authenticity and the love that had been waiting for him, as much in his music as in the hearts of all the people that came to listen. In this new beginning, he recognized healing was a journey, not a destination. It was about the songs he would write, the friendships he would nurture, and the stories that would echo through the chords, reminding him and others that they're not alone. They would cherish the laughter, the tears, and everything in between. The next chapter awaited with open arms, ready to welcome him to a brighter, more connected future. The golden morning light spilled through the windows, casting soft rays across the cluttered backstage area. George, clutching the newly penned lyrics tightly, felt the warmth seep into his very bones, a bright promise of the new path ahead. With the song buzzing in his mind, he knew the journey before him would not only be about music, it was about rediscovering himself and reconnecting with the world. The following weeks were a whirlwind of creativity. George and Annie dove deep into the writing process, collaborating through every dawn and dusk. The song evolved into a powerful ballad, one that resonated with the heartbeat of their shared experiences, tales of loss, hope, and the undeniable power of connection. They brainstormed carefully, each line sculpted with intention, reflecting the essence of newfound authenticity. Late one evening, as they wrapped up a long session, George leaned back in his chair and marveled at what they had created. "You know," he began, brushing his hands through his hair, "this feels different from anything I've done before. I'm proud of this." Annie smiled, her enthusiasm palpable. "That's because it is different. We're putting our hearts into it, not just the music business. This is about real life." "Yeah," he nodded, glancing at his guitar, which had almost felt like a stranger during the long stretches of isolation. Now it vibrated with hope instead of doubt. "This is for everyone who feels lost and alone, like we've felt at times." Their friendship deepened alongside their work. They shared stories over coffee, laughter punctuating the long nights spent crafting the song. Each coffee break became a moment of connection, an opportunity to share the struggles that made them who they were. Old photographs brought back memories, George showing snippets of his history, particularly of Norma, laughter echoing through the air as he recounted their happiest moments. Annie shared glimpses of her own past, the heartaches and triumphs that shaped her, each story a thread weaving into the fabric of their collaboration. Eager to put the song to the test, George arranged a small private listening party at the local community center, inviting a few close friends, family, and those from the night of the concert, Tommy among them. A wave of nervous anticipation washed over him as the day approached. He wanted to share what he had created, but he was acutely aware of how much of his heart it contained. On the night of the event, the community center buzzed with warmth. The sun dipped below the horizon, golden light replaced by the twinkling of string lights overhead. George arranged the chairs in a circle, creating an intimate space for the gathering. It was cozy and inviting, a safe haven for what he hoped would be an honest exchange of feelings. As faces filled the chairs, George's heart raced. He spotted Tommy in the corner, his familiar nod reassuring as he settled in with a few friends. A calm settled in, and he took a deep breath. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with vulnerability. "This song is something special to me, one that reflects the journey I've been on in recent months." He strummed the first chords, the notes resonating brilliantly in the warm air. As the melody flowed, George poured his heart and soul into every word, finding a beauty in the shared stories that emerged from him and those who surrounded him. This was the moment of rebirth. He felt free, like he had unlocked a door that he had feared to open for too long. The lyrics echoed through the space, rich with pain and hope, and as he sang the final notes, he opened his eyes to find the audience transfixed, a heartfelt silence replacing the music. Then slowly applause erupted, heartfelt and sincere. The faces reflected understanding, recognition of shared struggles, reminders that they were not alone. George felt overcome with emotion. "Thank you," he managed, wiping away tears that threatened to spill over. "This song is for all of us. It's a testament to the love we share and the strength that we find in one another." Tommy stood and raised his glass, his voice booming through the stunned silence. "Here's to George, to his courage and to us. May we always find our way back to one another, no matter how lost we feel." With the warmth of community enveloping him, George could see that the seeds of healing were blooming. Conversations sprang up like wildflowers around the room, sharing laughter and stories. The connections forged that night radiated out into the community, the song a bridge between their individual journeys. Weeks turned into months as George performed his new song at various local venues, gradually expanding into larger audiences. Word spread of his authenticity, a refreshing change that resonated with many. The messages began pouring in from fans, each expressing how the song had touched their lives, igniting a spark within them. It was a tidal wave of gratitude that fueled his newfound purpose. As he toured, he continued to reconnect with old friends and foster new relationships, embracing the raw beauty of vulnerability along the way. No longer did he feel the weight of loneliness crushing his spirit. Rather, he envisioned a vibrant tapestry woven from the threads of shared stories and experiences, each person a vital part of his journey. Along the roadside, he often spotted the stray dog from that fateful night, and it reminded him of the signs that life offered. George smiled to himself, realizing that the little creature had not only joined him on a magical evening, it had also symbolized openness and acceptance. With every song he sang, George found strength, a growth that echoed through his music and conversations. The vibrant connections forged during this journey fed his spirit, slowly but surely guiding him toward acceptance of himself and a commitment to others. In this new chapter of his life, George learned vital lessons about the importance of community, love, and vulnerability. He resided not just on the stage, but in the hearts of those he touched, creating a legacy built upon resilience and the affirmation that, together, no one truly walks alone. As the road stretched ahead of him, George knew he would embrace every twist and turn, ready to share his truth with the world, one heartfelt note at a time. After months of touring, the stage lights shining brighter and the crowds growing larger, George found himself standing at a familiar crossroads, the small town he called home. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm amber glow over the landscape. It had been a long time since he had returned to these roots, and as he drove down the winding roads, memories flooded his mind like the gentle notes of a familiar melody. As he rounded the last turn before arriving at the main street, George felt an unmistakable surge of nostalgia. He counted the familiar landmarks, the old diner where he had shared laughter and late-night stories with friends, The park bench where he and Norma had carved their initials, the old music shop where he bought his first guitar. Each stop had shaped him, filled him with warmth and memories of a life woven with love, laughter, and yes, loss. He parked his truck in front of the weathered wooden building that housed the community center, the venue for his upcoming concert, an opportunity for George to give back to the town that had given him so much. The familiar hum of excitement buzzed in his chest. Tonight was special. It wasn't just another performance, it was a homecoming, a chance to share the journey that had brought him to this moment. As he stepped inside, the warm air wrapped around him like a comforting embrace. The center was beginning to fill up with faces he hadn't seen in ages, some familiar, others new, but all connected through a community spirit. Old friends greeted him with open arms, and he felt a tide of warmth wash over him, mingling with the bittersweet ache of longing for the days gone by. "George, look at you, man!" Tom, an old school buddy, hollered from across the room, making his way through the crowd to engulf him in a bear hug. "Good to see you, Tom," George laughed, clapping his friend on the back. "It's been too long." "Can't wait to hear what you've been up to," Tom grinned, his enthusiasm infectious. "Word's gotten around about your new music. Everyone's excited to see you back." George's heart swelled. It felt great to be remembered not just as a musician, but as someone who belonged. The air thrummed with warmth and anticipation as he greeted everyone. Hugs, handshakes, and nostalgic stories flew around like confetti. Each interaction reminded him that he hadn't just been on a personal journey, he had been part of a larger tapestry. As the crowd settled, George stepped onto the stage, gazing across at the sea of familiar faces beaming back up at him. They were the people who had been with him during all phases of his life, the listeners who had cheered him on through his journey of struggle and resilience. Taking a deep breath, he clasped the microphone tightly in his hand while soaking in the moment. "It's amazing to be back here in my hometown," he said, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Thank you for welcoming me home, for all these years of love and support." He began strumming his guitar, the familiar chords vibrating through him as nostalgia drenched the room. The first notes of the new song filled the air, weaving a story of heartache, love, and ultimately, connection. As he sang, George became acutely aware of how his journey mirrored their collective experiences. By the time he reached the chorus, he felt the audience leaning into the music, voices joining together, a harmonious blend of shared hopes and dreams. It was more than a performance. It was a celebration of resilience, a collective statement of strength. The song was an anthem for everyone joining in, a reminder that though life often pulled them apart, together they could weather any storm. When he finished, the applause erupted, echoing through the hall with a fervor that filled him with pride. Smiling, he embraced the moment, witnessing old and new connections form right in front of him. It was as if the walls of the community center faded away, leaving only the spirit of unity and love. George stood still for a moment, his heart racing. The audience settled into a gentle calm, and he felt the need to speak. "Music has always been my way of bridging gaps," he began, looking into the faces filled with warmth and familiarity. "But lately, I've discovered that it's not just about the music. It's about all of us, the connections we forge, and the stories we share. You've helped me find my way back, and for that I will always be grateful." The room filled with murmurs of agreement and camaraderie, everyone recognizing the truth in his words. George made eye contact with Tommy, who nodded enthusiastically. In that moment, it felt as if they were all outsiders looking in at the beauty of community, the conversations, the laughter, and the unspoken support. The night unfolded, filled with laughter, music, and heartfelt tales of journeys taken, hardships faced, and triumphs celebrated. As the final song wound down, George noticed a light creeping into the hearts of everyone around him. It was the light of shared experiences illuminating the path forward, a reminder that they had always been interconnected, even during the difficult times. After the concert, as the evening wore on, George found himself chatting with an older woman named Mary, who had been a mentor during his early years. "You've grown into such a wonderful man, George," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "Your journey has brought you right back where you belong." "I'm learning to embrace it, Mary," he replied earnestly, "to accept the love in my life and the moments shared with people like you." As they talked, George felt the gentle nudging of years of wisdom in her words. They shared stories under the dimmed lights of the center, laughing and reminiscing until the stars began to blaze brightly outside. George realized that despite life's complexities, It was in these interactions that healing truly took root. With the event concluding, he felt a sense of closure, a returning home, not just to a place, but to himself. He'd rediscovered the joy and beauty that lay in vulnerability and connection. Driving back that night, he took a moment to absorb the quiet. It filled him with a sense of gratitude deep in his soul. He would carry this feeling forward, sharing love and authenticity with each note he played, knowing that sharing his journey also encouraged others to embrace theirs. George smiled as he navigated the roads back home, feeling confident within himself. Wherever his journey took him next, he knew he would always carry this community in his heart, forever intertwined by the melodies and memories they had created together. And above all, he was ready for whatever lay ahead, embracing both the light and the shadows with an open heart. In the following days, George reveled in his newfound sense of self. The mornings welcomed him with a calm that only came from deep-rooted acceptance. He understood that his music transcended mere notes. It was a reflection of his journey, a testament to the love and connections he had fostered through the years. Encouraged by his community's response, George called an old friend, Tommy, with an idea. "Let's organize a community music festival," he suggested, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "Not just another concert, but a chance to showcase local artists and celebrate our stories." The vibrant idea took flight, and soon the entirety of their small town buzzed with excitement. Posters adorned windows, children painted signs, and neighbors shared plans. Each interaction reinforced George's belief in the unity of their community. As the festival day approached, anticipation grew. The outdoor venue transformed into a canvas of colors and laughter, an unifying presence filling the air as families gathered. The aroma of food mingled with music, creating a joyful atmosphere that reflected their shared spirit. George took a moment to observe the scene, feeling grateful for the sense of belonging that enveloped him. This gathering wasn't merely an event, it was a celebration of resilience, of love, and of life. Finally, the time came for George to take the stage. The audience, a tapestry of familiar faces, stirred with excitement. "Thank you for being here today," he began, his voice steady with emotion. "This festival embodies our strength and unity. Each song we share today is a reflection of all our journeys." As he played, the crowd sang along, their voices intertwining with his, creating a beautiful harmony that resonated throughout the park. The experience felt sacred, each note celebrating their interconnectedness in a way that made George feel truly alive. In the festival's joyous rhythm, George found new energy as he joined local musicians for spontaneous jam sessions. Laughter rang out, weaving through the melodies. They brought people together, weaving narratives that echoed not only his struggles, but those of every attendee. As the day faded into evening with twilight illuminating faces lit by laughter and joy, George looked out into the crowd. He saw it not as merely an audience, but as family, each person contributing a unique note to the collective song that shaped their community. Somewhere in the throes of it all, hope blossomed, connecting them in astonishing ways. When the final notes resonated into the night sky, George felt a profound sense of fulfillment wash over him. They had woven a tapestry of memories, a beautiful narrative of strength, love, and shared experiences. As he stepped off the stage, the energy of accomplishment surged through him. Conversations flourished around him, each shared story a reminder of life's beauty. Driving home under a canopy of stars, George reflected on the legacy they had built that day. He understood that it wasn't just his music. It was the love he shared with those around him. It was a force that fostered connections, one that would continue to thrive through the ages. With a heart full of hope and gratitude, George embraced the path ahead, knowing that life was an ever-unfolding story. Each chord he played would symbolize the bonds nurtured, and every note would serve as a tribute to the lives intertwined with his own. As he navigated the familiar roads back home, he felt ready for whatever came next, confident in the knowledge that he would carry his community in his heart always, forever alive through the melodies and memories they created together.